Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Johnson, host of Living Our Values workshop, which we do every month on the 11th of the month at 11 a.m. Pacific time. I'm here with my co-host, Sheila Arthur. Hi, Sheila.
Hi, everybody.
And we are here to gather to create a space to talk about what it means to live our values in a conscious, intentional, and a beneficial way, because all of us can use a little bit more well-being in our lives, I would say. And our values are our pathway to that well-being. So I like to start off by defining what core values are, because oftentimes values are spoken about in a very general way, or even an aspirational way. And what we do here, which is slightly different, is that we talk about values from an active, intentional, tangible, usable way, so that they're a part of our life and a tool that helps us live our best life, live our best self, whatever that can be in the moment. So what are core values? Core values are single words or short phrases that connect us to our highest self, our most divine self. That part of us that we know is high and high. I spoke out of turn there. But it's that perfection, I want to say, not in that cognitive way, but in that divine way. And they also provide a bridge for us, a bridge between ourselves, who we are, and how we are out in the world. So it helps us connect the both of us, our inner lives with our outer lives, and then our outer lives with our inner lives, so that we can bring our whole selves into whatever we are doing. They become an inner compass for us in that way. They guide us for our direction, where we want to go, show us how to get there. And they can also at the same time answer questions for us, provide and become an advisory board, and answer, hey, is this a good idea? Is this the path to take? And today we're going to talk about how to use our values both as an inner compass and as an advisory board. So our theme today is talking about values and self-care. Who's feeling a bit need for self-care these days? I know I am. Anyone else? When I think of self-care, I really think of it as a path to self-love. Because ultimately, unless we love ourselves, it can be really hard to be out there in the world and love others. And really starts with that. When self-care is practiced, it allows us to fill our cup, to nourish ourselves, put the oxygen mask on ourselves, like they tell us on the airplanes. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your children or anyone else. Because if my oxygen tank is out, I can't help anyone else. So really, we have to start there. And even though I've known this for a while and can continue to know it, I forget. I have amnesia. I get busy. I go into my checklist. I become a human doing. And self-care becomes more and more important. They start to feel overwhelmed, overburdened, disconnected, all of those things. And our values provide a really amazing tool for us to see maybe where our blind spots are with our core values and self-care. So anyone else have been feeling that way? What other feelings have you been feeling? Any overwhelm or disconnection? What are you feeling? What is your cue that you need some more self-care, I guess would be a better question.
Just a feeling of some feeling of disconnection. My cue that I need self-care comes when I find myself breathing out, that out breath, like, and it's like, oh, something's been going on that I haven't been tending to. It's like, and that is that's my cue that, oh, okay, I'm a little bit out of balance. I need a moment, or I need something to help me through this time, because I'm kind of like floating through or just going through without the level of consciousness that I'd like to have like
Right.
in my life, but I'm not like in something larger than my life. It's just like my life. It's just like this little box, whatever it is, whatever I'm doing, I'm in it. And it's just not enough because I'm not breathing. I'm not breathing in the same way.
Right. Yeah, we forgot to take a breath.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's so key. Who else has something to share what's the cue that you know it's time that you need to do more self-care?
So this may be, I don't want to say silly because I don't want to judge it, but I cook dinner for my family a couple of nights a week. And lately, I've been getting a lot of complaints slash suggestions, and it started to get to me because I was just like, you want to say, well, just do it yourself. I'm not doing nothing. But when it starts to get to me, I know that it's appreciated in a base level, and it may not be exactly what they want. And so they're just making suggestions. And so when I get too self-conscious, I guess that's what it is. I know that, okay, you got to go back into your toolbox and reinforce your own self, because everybody doesn't everybody doesn't react and give suggestions in the same gentle way that you think they should. So I don't know. That's a little example, a little practical example for me.
That's a great example, really, when we realize we cognitively understand, right, that what they're saying isn't personal necessarily, though it feels very personal and we take it personally. But it's time to find that inner strength within ourselves, because here you are doing something of your heart, of your, to cook for another, nourish others, and finding that dance between, not wanting to be a doormat for people.
Yeah.
That's my dance. I'm not saying that's yours, but that's mine. And being generous with my family and caring for them. That fine line, like, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being taken advantage, not taken advantage of, taken for granted. That's the word.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because this is not one of the things that I ever called a strong suit, cooking. I didn't like it. I didn't do it. And so now, wait a minute, I'm cooking and you tell me it's too sweet? It's too sweet? Well, put an onion on it or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and as women, we are conditioned to please. So
Mhm.
hearing feedback like that for myself, I'll tend to want to fix it and make it better, make them happy, make others happy first, which is why this conversation is so important. And raising children, having friends too, even with friends, I can do that with others, make others' desires and needs more important than my own. I'm much better than I used to. But at the same time, so what core values come in here? Oh, Constance, do you want to say how you welcome, by the way, it's so good to see
Hi. Hi, everyone.
you. Do you want to say when you know that you need self-care? Like, is there a cue for you when you have self?
Yeah, for me is when I'm craving or eating carbs. I
Mm,
know my
Mhm.
sleep's off, or I'm angry, or um, I'm not taking time for myself to feel the well. And I'm looking to carbs to soothe me or fulfill that, which is not the answer. Only creates more problems. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because it's really true. That's when we pick up these other things that we think are going to make us feel better. I've certainly done that. If I'm tired, I'll go to the food or obsession about something, and not go to what I really need, how to nourish myself in different ways. Thank you. And I think that then we did, for myself, I'll just then kind of get busier, to keep trying to find distracted. I think I need to do more to fix it. And it becomes just a vicious cycle. But what about just rest? Just taking a moment to pause, reevaluate,
Mhm.
and rest. I get cranky. I'll start to kind of be short-tempered, things like that, even on the pickleball court, or I noticed, which is part of my self-care. So that's a little funny, but that's after I get into it a little bit, or around housework at home. If I'm feeling like I'm overdoing it and I'm constantly, you know, after 4 loads of laundry yesterday, it was feeling like a lot in the middle of work and getting this out and all of that. So it's, we have cues all day long that we need to take care of ourselves. And our job is to take that moment to pause, to recognize it and not like skip over it. Cause that's what happens. Like I'll start to act out after skipping over many cues along the way. Like, oh, I'm tired. I'll go make a matcha. Then, oh, wait, maybe take a nap. You know, like 5 minutes could probably help. No, keep going. I have to X, Y, Z. So the cues are right there. And then if we attach that to our values, right? So those cues also show us we're out of alignment with our values, because our values are our highest self, that part of us that is cared for, that part of us that is self-love, that part that is divine, and part of who we are when we are in alignment and kind of acting from that best self. So that means we're out of alignment with our own values too. So it's a cue. The same cues that show us we need self-care, the same cues that we're often out of alignment with our values. Because one of my values is not work harder. Can anyone else see that in their cues? How the cues show them that maybe one of their values, if they're not in alignment with one of their values, or what, or something is going on like that. Does that make sense? That bridge that I just made there? Yeah. So our values can become a significant tool and clue to move us forward in a healthier way for ourselves. And they also can help us, we were talking about this earlier, right, on the alignment of mind, body, and spirit, because we can look at our values from that lens as well. What are all the different ways that our values can show us a path forward? So that's kind of very abstract, what I just said. So what does that look like in reality? So yesterday I was talking about feeling a little overwhelmed, the amount of housework, the amount of taking care of my daughter who's not been well, that takes an enormous emotional toll, physical toll, mental toll, all of that, as well as being a business owner, all of those other things that, and the state of the world has certainly felt heavy on me at times. And as I was talking about it, the normal self-care cues start coming up. Oh, can you take a rest? Can you let something go? Can you what can you not do to lessen the load? And what came out of that, and I'd like to hear what your kind of go-to things are, but what came out of that was, one of my values is creativity. And I haven't been practicing creativity. I love to paint. I love to play. I love to dance. I love to, I mean, in my kitchen, but I love to write for pleasure, or even for work. I just love to create. And I can do that somewhat with my work, but create just to create. And it's a part of me that fills my heart. And so while my instinct would be to cut something out, the reality is I want to find the time, which I probably could do, for 10 minutes of what I call faith drawing, which is drawing without looking at what you're drawing. Or pure contour drawing is another way to say it. So it was about adding something. It wasn't always about taking something away. And I thought that was powerful, and it was my values that cued me into it, because it was creativity that wasn't getting expressed. And when even just thinking about it, I felt better. But it was that part of being able just to play with I think it was more even just kind of with my hands, with the visuals, with the beauty of life, because that's a part of my value. And so that's what I mean, where when we are out of alignment, we can look towards our values to remind us of maybe a part we've left behind.
That
Yeah.
part is really hitting home with the creativity, because it's like, oh my gosh, just hearing you say that, and that longing that I have, because it's one of my values is invite beauty and creativity in every moment. And the beauty is certainly there, and I can certainly see that part, but the creativity, I think, has kind of been on the back burner. And it's like, oh my gosh, I mean, there are very simple things that I can do, but I've made it so unattainable. Oh my God, I've got to take out my art supplies, and they're way up at the top of the cabinet. And it's like, and then what am I going to do with them? I'm going to have to put them somewhere. And it's like, then they'll be all over the place. And it's like, you know, and it's like, it's going to take me a while to get into it. And it's like, oh my God, I haven't drawn with my colored pencils in so long. What's it going to feel like? And am I going to like what I do? And then I don't even do it, you know, and it's like, it just reminds me of, gosh, just that act of creating for its own sake, because there is something so beautiful. And so it just allows you to just be in the moment. I mean, it's everything that's about my values, right? And is through that process. But I don't allow myself to do that. I don't give myself the space and the permission to do that. And so that's something that I'm really looking at today as you're talking about that, because it's like, what the heck? It's like, why not? It's not, you know, it's like, it would be so simple to do that, and such a relief from the other things that I do, you know, in the evenings, or to spend my time, or to wind down, you know, Netflix or whatever else, you know, it's like infinitely more soul kind of nourishing, you know, and just help me in such a better way. So I'm really like cued into that. It's like, ooh, yeah, that one hits home for me.
I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that, because it's true. Those things can feel very hard to get down from the top of the closet, you know, metaphorically and literally. And so I think where it starts is, what are your go-tos for self-care? Like, we all tend to have things like, oh, I need self-care. What are the things that we go to first? What are some of the things that we do? You know, like I said, I'll start to think I got to cut things out, you know, stop doing certain things.
Well, I go to meditation and journaling.
Great.
And I am fairly consistent with it. And so sometimes, though, I judge myself, right? Why fairly? Why not every day? Well, just once in a while, just one day out of 15, I say, I can't do this today. And for whatever reason, I'm not going to do it today. And then I get this like, I'm my own boss. I can do what I want to do. You can't tell me I have to do that. So it's a really weird thing, but go back to the main core values. What do you say is important? What do you say is valuable to your life? And go ahead and take advantage of it. Because if you don't use what's in your toolkit that you know works, you're just setting yourself up.
For sure. Right.
Like you talk about choosing Netflix over going for a walk. Well, on Thursday nights, I usually choose the Netflix because I want to see the latest thing that came out. But I know that going for a walk is what soothes me, what heals me. That's self-care. So we have to learn how to make the choice willingly. Allow yourself to make the best choice for you.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a perfect way of saying it. It is a choice. And what helps me, because I can get overwhelmed sometimes and talk myself, well, so it'd be great to just sit on the couch and do, you know, like I can overthink the whole decision making, which is why I like values, because then it's just super clear to me, because I can go and I go, oh, wait, yeah, this is my value. this is the direction for right now that I need to go in a way that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of before. Because if I'm left to my own devices, I tend to think through the same things. I tend to do the same things over and over again. And it's not always, because I can take lots of walks, but if I'm not doing it in a way that kind of feels, it's better than nothing. But if I'm like just kind of checked out on the walk and not as present, just like, okay, gotta get those steps in, or whatever the sanity in my brain is off on, you know, it has a different energy to it, rather than for me to say something like, oh, I want to feel connected to my body. Even if I'm on with a friend, I want to feel connected to my friend and my body. Or, God, it's so abundant. I feel like I'm flourishing in my life to be able to take a walk at lunch, something like that. So it helps me kind of get out of my own way by naming my values and committing to them. It offers me a reminder back to myself in those moments when it's hard to know what's the right thing for me. And even if I don't always do it, I know. At least I know. Or I can choose again another time.
So the question that I have then is, like, when you're in that moment, Amy, how do you remember to connect with your values? Because sometimes it's like when you're in the process of doing, it's like, just for me, is when I get into the busyness of life, or just like whatever is in front of me, and I feel like on some level I'm present, but it's a different level of presence because I'm not bringing intention. There's certain parts of it that are missing, even though I'm like really tending to what's in front of me. If I lose that, like you're talking about connecting back to yourself and connecting to your values, but what helps you to actually remember?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to
This is
connect to
an
my
amnesia.
values.
Yeah. I go through, it's a great question. Thank you. Because sometimes I forget too. And sometimes I'm defiant as well. I'm like, I don't want to think about that because I want to be surly or whatever. I'm human in that way. Or mercurial. I'm a Gemini. What can I say?
So am I.
So is Constance. So there's a couple things that I do. One is in my morning journaling, I do something called two-way prayer, where I write a letter to higher power, to what I call God or goddess, and then I get a response. And as part of that, I'll ask what value would be in alignment with you for me to focus on today. So just asking that question puts me in the frame of mind of thinking about them throughout the day, even if it's not that one, but I'll go to that one more readily than another. And it'll give me a cue, because each of my values represents a different part of me. So if the answer is gratitude and grace, it's going to be more of a day of gentleness, focusing on just acceptance, being of gratitude, but of really allowing, surrendering, not trying to be out there as much. Whereas another day I might get flourish. It's more about being visible, being seen, being out there, and they have different energies to them. So when I write and I get a response, it's to me, not from me, but from the divine, then I have a clue of a path to go on. So that's one way that I do. I also have visual cues in my life. I have rocks with my values on them for me to see. I have a tattoo of a mariposa, a butterfly, which reminds me of connection and things like that. So these cues are there. The cues are as long as they're visual cues, essentially, to help remind me. And then if there's a period where I really need help, I'll post them. I'll put them up on a wall with Post-it notes and just somewhere where I can see them, just to remind me. But those visual cues, I think, are really helpful in that regard. And certainly the journaling, making it a daily practice. And what I find is the more I do it, the more I go to it. It becomes ingrained.
I love that there's a practice that you have that really brings you to that moment of like thinking about it and being intentional about it,
Yeah.
rather than allowing or waiting for your mind to remember. And it's kind of important, it's an important reminder for me, as a practice, as a habit, cultivating those kinds of things that you do every day, or you do, this is just part of what I do to begin my day, like your morning rituals or whatever it might be, that really help to like, oh, okay, got to focus on my values again, so that you don't go so far, like days and
Right.
days and days before it's like, yeah, okay, my values. Yeah, so
Right.
that's really important anchor.
So, does anyone else have an experience with that, where they've used their values they remember their values in a moment to help them find their self-care when they're...
What, yeah, I've been listening, and Sheila, I'm sorry, Sheila was saying something about her art tools are high up in a closet, and the space. I just finished a project in the back, this ADU that I've been putting back together because it needed to be permitted. And while I've been putting it back together, I started painting. But it required the space and being able to leave things out. And so it may be that instead of the value being, needing to be answered to, the space needs to be answered to. Make it a space where you can be as messy as you want. I mean, even if it's the bathtub, someplace, if you're in a small place, like if I were living in that house, it would be really hard to make the space that I took to do these things. But because nobody's living in it, and I'm thinking about how to make it ready for someone, I just started painting these canvases that I found on the street. And I kept thinking to myself, well, where else would you be able to do this? There's not a room in the house where I could spread out like that. And all of a sudden the space presented itself, the canvases presented themselves, and there I was doing something I've never even done before, making paintings, and having a place I want to put them. And it just all came around because of space. And I just wanted to speak to that part of what your dilemma was, and say that you might need to carve out a space.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Right. And Terry, in your value of we were talking about this the other day, about self-expression, right?
Yeah.
Is what connects you to all of that creativity too.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really true, taking steps towards that expression, taking to living that value out. The space is key.
Yeah, I hadn't been able to take care of the plants that are all in pots while this project was going on. And it took longer than it should have. And I couldn't go in the little house. I couldn't. Anyway, it was a kind of, all of a sudden, there's this new freedom. And I was able to fill it with all these things that are on backlog. So yeah, self-expression seems to, it needs space.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's really a lot of truth that I remember in the community, the core values connection. One time I committed to getting back to this drawing that I had, this faith drawing that I call, that I love to do. And week after week, I was committing to do it on a Monday and not doing it that week. Committing to doing it. It went on for a couple weeks and then I just didn't do it. And so I had to take a step back. And this is kind of speaking to what you're talking about. It was space. what I realized is I like to draw in this one journal. I couldn't find my journal. I didn't know where it was. I didn't know where what I wanted to draw with was. So the next week I decided what I'm gonna do this week is look for my journal.
Yeah.
So that was the action to take first. Because sometimes it is a logistical thing that keeps us from doing the thing that takes care of us. And we're jumping over it a little bit. So after not doing it for a while, instead of beating myself up, I paused and realized, oh, wait, what's really the next step? Find my journal.
Yeah.
Found my journal or created their space, like you said. Or maybe one day a week, it's take them down from the closet. Top of the closet. And then it was easier to draw the next week because I actually had my journal and I didn't force it. So it's like sometimes we think we're self-sabotaging when it was really just a problem of logistics and our minds not being able to create, take one step, which was really the next step necessary to get us where we want to go.
And then also just recognizing that it's not insurmountable, okay, this is fixable. It's like, because it's like anybody could look like what you're doing. It's like anybody could say to me, it's like, well, just take them down. It's like fairly simple, right? I've made it such an issue, because it's like, oh, I have to have everything. I live in a small space. I have to have everything neat. And it's like, I don't want to have a lot of visual clutter. But at the same time, like, it's like, it's more important to have the opportunity to be creative and to give myself that gift of creativity versus, just having like this visual field where everything is like just in its place. So it's like, okay, which one has more value in this moment for me and which one is going to like speak to my soul more? And sometimes it's like, yeah, just go ahead and do the damn thing.
Right.
Yeah. And I saw a woman on one of the social media spaces who said that she has to make a painting every day. So she has this small notebook. And even if she doesn't have the space someplace, she has a little set of watercolors and makes a painting in that spiral notebook every day.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say is make it bite-sized. Right. And even for you, Sheila, like maybe the action only is taking it down. Don't even put the pressure on yourself to make anything with it.
Right. Exactly.
Look at it. Then you may get an idea. Oh, wait, I can make a portable one and go to the cafe and draw there. Like ideas may come just by taking that small action of taking them down. Maybe you'll find a really beautiful basket to keep them in that will add to your, where the values will be at conflict, you'll complement one another.
Exactly.
In that way that sometimes it's adding, right? We don't have to, it's adding something to your life as opposed to having to take something away.
Or losing something.
Yeah, for another. So it's both. That was great. Thank you so much, Terry, for bringing that piece into it. And it's so exciting to hear that.
Yeah.
You gonna jump in?
As far as something that we do when it comes up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I have this eye mask massage thing. And so for me, the first thing I turn to is laying down for at least 10 minutes, meditate, and that this eye mask thing lasts about 10 minutes. So I just put that on and go into that and then ask myself, do I need more? Do I need something else? And that fulfills my value of connection because it's connecting to myself and my higher power to start. Beautiful. And then sometimes I'll say, oh, maybe I'm going to call Amy. And then that'll be my connection.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true. And Do you find that there are certain values you go towards more frequently than others when it comes to like self-care or things like that?
Well, I have my primary values, which I kind of cover every day
Yeah.
in a way, in some form or fashion.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that too, where I'll tend to go to certain values first, and creativity usually isn't one of them, which is why looking at that set of values, that 5 to 7, is helpful to be like, oh yeah, maybe I
Yeah.
need a little bit more of this, because I can kind of get in a rut, even with my self-care. Like, oh, I meditated. Oh, I did my PT. I did yoga. I did this. I have to do this. You know, and
Right. Right.
I definitely feel better than not doing it, but it's not necessarily fulfilling me in the same way.
Mhm.
You know, listen, I'm still a checklist kind of a person. I just, I'll transform in all sorts of ways, but I will default to that kind of mentality more often than not. Right? Like, am I doing enough? Yes, 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 yes. Um, I've grown a whole lot, but that is still kind of my go-to in that way. So I wonder, so for me, it's helpful to have these other, like, which one of your values maybe doesn't come up as often, do you think? And you may not have an answer. They may all kind of play. I'm just curious if that
I
is.
think I tend to put passion on the back burner
Mm,
sometimes, a little too much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be an example of one where that can start to feel like a God-sized hole when we're not. That's what it does feel like for me when I'm putting creativity on the back burner. It feels
Yeah.
big. And
Yeah. Because that when the passion value is gotten out of the picture, then it becomes more of a chore and labor to do things.
Mhm,
And then I disconnect, and then and then the other values fall away.
mhm.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because it's really powerful. And that's, for me, I go back to what I wrote for my definition for my value. I'll go back to, how does this value look when it goes for me internally? Or what does passion look like when it's about myself? Like, how am I passionate with myself? Then it's, how am I passionate in the outside world? Either with, in all different ways. What does that look like? So
Right.
in that regard, it helps us, our values help us find our blind spots that will make our lives more vibrant and vibration, full of life, vibration.
So I want to add something because Terry talked about space and it triggered something for me, because since I've been to this group, I decluttered my closet.
Yeah. Hooray. I can
And
hear it.
it was amazing. I mean, I taught a workshop on decluttering once for a whole weekend. I had people. So I know the process, I know the principle, I know the value, but until I started to really get my hands dirty and do it and start to eliminate some of the clothes that I'm not wearing, it was a hard process, but I did two things that were part of my values this year, which is to start asking for help when you need help.
Mm.
And so I found somebody who actually likes to do that. And she came over and she helped me. And we got bags of stuff together. Now, after she left, this was the next level of my learning. I wanted to take the stuff to Goodwill. And I drove there and it was closed.
Ah.
And then I drove to another one and they had a sign up that said, "We're not taking any more donations right now." So I kept that stuff in my car for probably a week. And this was easily 6 trash bags of clothes. And I had to keep reminding myself why I did it, because I needed to make space in my environment. And also, I kept reminding myself that this was part of my generosity value,
Mm,
because I have stuff that I don't use, and somebody else could be wearing this. Even if it's just the people that work there, they grab it first and don't give it to those who really need it. Even if that's their mentality and they use it, that's okay. But I need to be generous enough to give it away. So in that process, which is something that a lot of people talk about, oh, I need to declutter my closet. It was really good. It had more layers to it than I thought it would have, but it was really good and worthwhile. So I'm just bragging. And then hopefully encouraging somebody else to go ahead and ask someone who you know is willing to help with something like that and get it done. Because when your space is in order or not so cluttered or so tight, it frees up your mind.
It's true. That is one of my cues. Thank you
100%.
for that, Christine. It's a powerful reminder of the things we can do to really stay in alignment. And one of my cues that I'm out of alignment is when my car is really dirty.
Mm.
I'm too busy. I'm not paying attention. Everything I've had, like this, I've left this water bottle and this thing in the car, and the donations are in the car and haven't been dropped off, and all of those things. And that's usually a cue that I'm out of alignment a little bit. And it's not about being perfect either. Like, we can't do any of this perfectly. That's not it. It's just, that's why it's about aligning. Oh, like, oh, I'm off of alignment here. I'm just, just like, okay, I'm gonna get back in alignment. Oh, wait, I'm off. Oh, okay. Yeah.
well, that makes me think about the fact that I don't have a car. And a friend is moving in tomorrow who says I can use his car whenever I want. And I have this pile of electronics that I've wanted to recycle that I can't carry someplace. And I have a pile of furniture I want to recycle that I can't carry someplace. And I keep telling him, you may not really want to say what you just said, because I might have your car all the time. And he said that would be fine. But anyway, just how decluttering really depends on a lot of different things already in order, like a car. I can't tell you how often I miss having a car, but I feel on some level virtuous toward the climate problems we have by not having a car. So I get sort of captive in this struggle between, I'm being so climate active and I hate it. Anyway, that's that's the dilemma, the tightrope.
Yes. Being a climate person too. I totally relate to that.
Yeah.
I do have a car, but yeah.
Yeah.
Before we end, the one thing I also want to do is I have a worksheet. It's similar. It's the same. I've shown this one before, but it's a powerful one, because what we've talked about today is more how to use our values as that inner compass to kind of see where we're off alignment, out of alignment. What I want to also show you is how your values can be kind of an advisory board. Remember when I talked about how each of my values has a different energy?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to put this in the chat. This worksheet tends to, this is more of a, it's a guide. Oh, I thought I had it here. Oops, hold on one second. Computer chaos for a minute. Oh, I think it's still in here. It's, hold on, I'm having trouble finding it. If not, I'll email it to y'all. But the idea is that you ask your values. Right now, we would ask our values for ideas of self-care. So you take the time ahead of time. So what would my value of creativity say to me for self-care? What would my value of passion say for me for self-care? What would self-expression look like for Terry? Which of you, for each of those, each of my values, what does connection look like? What does gratitude and grace look like? What does bring beauty to every moment look like? So we take the time when we're not stressed to say, oh, these are some things I can do that signal self-care, that my values are sharing with me, that I hadn't thought of. Oh, okay. Can I draw for 10 minutes? Can I flourish? Could be dance for 10 minutes, wherever I am. Call a friend. But whatever, it doesn't really matter. Read for 10 minutes can sometimes feel really connecting to me and feel nourishing in a way that I wouldn't expect. So it's taking the moment to, or it's taking the time to consider what your values can share with you that are, here it is. What are some ideas for self-care? And then you have that list. And if you keep that list with you, then you can refer to it. And then we don't forget, it's another tool to remember our values. So it's called the self-care, with your values, but it could also be called kind of like, what my values have to say about self-care, And it's a great remembering of the values have a point of view for us.
Mm.
And the same thinking happened too if you're saying, oh, I want to go on this retreat, but it's a little bit more money than I want to spend, or something like that. Is this the right thing for me to do? That's another way you can ask your values what they think. And they will tell you in a way that's pretty profound. And the more you do it this way, the more beneficial it becomes, the more you becomes, because they feel, they like to be asked. And they will answer.
Well, that was a good segue because I wanted to invite everybody to my soul care experience, which is happening in the beginning of December. And I'll put the flyer in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me if you are interested. Just go to my website. It's going to be exactly what you talked about, a self-care retreat, and allowing people to define what self-care means to them. And then when you define it for yourself, if you're engaging or not.
Right. It's true.
You know when you're being negligent of taking care of yourself. So just an invitation.
Thank you,
Great.
Christine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions or situations that anyone would like to talk about before we end today, in a way to help with the overwhelm or just feeling off or exhaustion?
I just want to
Harry,
say,
is that a tree? Is that alive, or is that that's a screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you sat in that environment for 10 minutes every day, whoo, how beautiful.
Oh, but I have a huge tree in my backyard and I'm out there all the time.
That is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing a lot with plants out there. And the tree is perfect shade. Yeah. But thank you for offering this workshop
You're welcome.
and giving us
Amy,
such
how-
advance notice. Usually it's tomorrow.
True.
Yeah, I like that it's 11:11 because then it's like I remember it. And put
Right.
it on my
Like, oh, it's
calendar.
the 11th. It's happening today.
Yeah, it's helpful. Yeah.
Each month.
So with the self-care, how often do you inquire with yourself about it? Like, and see if your self-care is up to where you want it to be.
I would say set a little alarm in your watch.
Mm. Yeah.
Once an hour,
Wow.
once a day.
Yeah, I
I
don't
guess that
think,
could go with the Apple Watch stand once an hour. I don't know, when you see the stand, to be like, oh,
well,
yeah.
Plus, what somebody said earlier, when things start going crazy, it's like, that's it. You know you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Right, but
You
how
start
do you
overreacting.
address it before you get to that point?
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's the thing. It's listening, it's really knowing your cues ahead of time before it gets to that point. Remember when I said I tend to skip by some of those cues?
Mhm.
So it's not skipping those cues. It's being more attuned to ourselves to know when those cues come up and then going to the list or going back to the, the
Mhm.
values to see. There's a quote on my tissue box in the bathroom that says, "Don't quit, rest." And
Oh, I like that.
yeah, I would say,
Good.
don't quit, pause. Maybe you need to rest. Maybe you need to do 5 minutes of interval training. I don't know. I don't always know what it is that I need, but the pause allows me to discern what's the best way forward. So it's yeah, so I think it's about it's pausing and noting the cues.
Mhm.
When I pull the cabinet open, that's a good thing. Or when I just want to or when I just start to feel that focusing on somebody else is what they're doing wrong is usually a good um and that's the time to start kind of going, oh wait, I need a little bit more today, and to think about it bite-sized too. Can I take 5 minutes to meditate? So today I didn't have time to do my 20-minute meditation, so I did 5.
Mhm.
I feel a difference, but it's still better than not. I have an 11-minute yoga practice that when I do it, it's better than when I don't. So I found these things that maybe aren't, top level, but they bring me closer to that in a way that is manageable and fulfilling. Really, I can feel good doing
And
it.
I really like that you have the list somewhere where you can look at every day.
Yes, it's so important. I mean, I think that's a great self-care act leaving here today.
Mhm.
I'll do it too, is post your values somewhere you can see them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Because
think the other thing that kind of,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Sheila.
oh, I was just saying what occurred to me when you were saying the pause, don't quit, rest, or don't quit, pause. It's like it's creating that space. It's like, but what Terry talked about is space. It's creating space. The things that you do every day, like when you do your two-way prayer every morning, you've created the space for that to occur. To have that process, to think about it, to look at the list, to see the things. It's like there's room for that. And
Yeah,
you make that room something that is like it's like a daily practice. It's a routine. So when you create the space, whether it's creating space for, you know, physical space for my drawing implements, or that mental space, or just the time to be able to do that pause and to allow yourself to reflect, I think that's such a beautiful um it's a beautiful reminder for me that, oh yeah, that's it. It's all about creating that space and
right,
giving yourself the permission and the time to do that.
right. And not making it have to be all day. It can be
No.
5 minutes. And to be honest, there are days lately that I've been so exhausted, like just to the bone tired when I wake up, right? Like after a night of sleep that's supposed to rejuvenate me, where sitting up to meditate feels too much. So
Wow.
I'll lay down to meditate.
Mm.
And I
Mhm.
won't fall back to sleep. I'll actually meditate. And that's self-care. That's still that's where the grace comes in, of my gratitude and grace.
Mhm. Mhm.
I can grant myself the grace to lay down to meditate.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
That's
I
good.
started, I don't normally meditate in the morning, but I started doing a nighttime meditation because I paid all this money for a new iPhone and it has good battery. So I don't mind turning on something and letting it run for 20 minutes. And now I may hear the first 3 minutes of the guided meditation, and then I go into a good deep sleep. So that nighttime meditation really helps me. It helps me sleep better, and I just feel better, like I'm taking care of myself.
Right.
Another way, I'm taking care of myself.
Right.
Hmm.
And that's a great point to make. Showing up today is taking care of yourself. We so
Mhm.
often tell ourselves we're not doing enough. That is not what this session is about. It's really about saying we are taking care of ourselves, and how can we continue to do so in ways that enrich us even more. It's not about a lack, but it's really about honoring the many different aspects of
Yeah.
ourselves, and the parts of us that need different things, and remembering that, and how we can feel more grounded when we do that as a practice. So today's a reset for me as well, especially as
Thank
we get into
you.
the fall.
Thank you. I got to go to a 12 o'clock meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Christine, that's a beautiful flyer. If I lived in California, I would go. It's
Oh,
so
okay.
tempting with lunch and a chair massage.
I
The chair
know.
massage had me.
It's okay.
Okay.
Just the energy is
Thank-
out there. I got to keep putting
Thank
the
you.
energy out there.
Yes, keep putting it out there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, everybody. I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Glad to see you all.
Christine.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank